It's a very lovely day still, which I'm surprised, although this ground is quite soft. But we're back here at the round tree, and I thought I'd make this little video. It's like a follow-up to the one I did a little while ago, and around, you remember we were talking about Chinese bikes and all that sort of stuff, and Royal Enfield being the last great manufacturer. So I've been away, 2 weeks in India, and it sort of all kicks off, isn't it? I come back and there's like, it feels like there's desolation coming to the motorbike market, and dealers are all shutting down, all the rest of it. So I thought maybe it's a good idea just to have a follow-up video to that and just give my thoughts on what seems to be happening. And I even made notes this time. I know I tend to do my videos sort of a bit off the cuff, and they sort of in one take, but I thought it'd be good to make a few notes this time, because you can sort of see things coming down the track, and I thought it'd be interesting to have a look and see if we could work out where all this came from, where this started, because I think it's very simplistic to just tar it with a brush of cost of living crisis and all the rest of it. There's a lot more to it than that, and I think this issue around the motorbikes, and it's not solely to motorbikes, it's cars as well. It's to do with how we buy stuff these days, and how we got to that point. But I will say that I've come out on a shakedown on the CB500X adventure bike project, and I've just been to the motorbike shop, and there's still one in my area, and Billy's, and just to select the new tyres. These tyres are shocking. This is the first bike I've ridden since we come back from India, and God, these tyres are terrible, really, really terrible, because they're knackered now. So yeah, a few things I need to change. It was just getting things into line and that, but I'll do an update on that anyway. So the things that obviously very noticeable that have happened in the last couple of weeks, particularly in my area, where we've had two large motorbike dealers, P&H and Groombridge, and they're the only ones I know of. There's probably some more that have gone to the wall. They're quite large dealerships, particularly P&H, who did Honda, Ducati, KTM. They just started doing CF Motor and all the rest of it, and they've all gone to the wall. And they didn't have a bad reputation, I don't think. I think their reputation was pretty good. I think the servicing costs and the rest of it were pretty expensive, but it's like everybody's experience is different, isn't it, with these dealers? And I borrowed some bikes off them and stuff, and the staff that I spoke to were really lovely, and I'd got a lot of time for those guys. So, but some of the other people I think what's happened with those dealers is that some of the feedback I've heard is, that they bought a bike 1 week, and the next week they went to get their first service done or whatever it was, and told, well, we're not doing it because we can't do it, and that caused a lot of bad feeling, I think. But we'll come back to that in a minute. And Groombridges, which I've said already on the channel in my previous video on this subject, I've found them excellent, absolutely excellent. And unfortunately, my last Enfield dealer in the area, so I've got to go a long way now to get anything Enfield. But that's another thing I'll pick up on in a minute. So I think we have to go back a little bit and look at where was the start of all this, or in my mind, the proper start for all these issues. And I think we have to look at the way that we now shop and where that all started. Because if you look at the way that manufacturers are now, and the suppliers are, so much of it is online. And we had, we back in the day, we'd all go down to the motorbike showrooms and car showrooms, and I'm going to put cars in the same category as this a little bit, but there is some subtle differences. And we go to the showroom, we go for a test ride, and we'd probably buy our vehicle. But that's really changing now, isn't it? We as soon as the internet turned up, the internet, that's got a lot to answer for, isn't it? We had, you know, we got into a situation as we went move along the line, we would go to a dealership to look at the vehicle, and then we go home and find it online cheapest, the cheapest price we could do. And it's exactly what we're doing with motorbikes, isn't it? We do that. We go and look at we used to go and look at a bike, and then we had that situation when we go and see where we can find it at the best deal. And quite often the best deals we could find weren't from shops with a retail frontage, you know, with a business premises. You know, it'll be an online retailer, because it makes common sense, and it's cheaper to do that. You can give bigger discounts because you haven't got to supply heating, staff, and all the rest of it. So that's how that sort of manifested itself, really. And you know, we're really good at it, aren't we? We like to look at stuff online. But now we've gone into this other area. Now we've taken it to another level, haven't we? Where we don't even look at stuff. You know, we don't even sort of look at retailers online, although we still do. The way we find out about whether the bike is any good or not is by watching idiots like me on YouTube. And I don't think my reviews are anything to go on why you should buy that bike. I think they're just my experience of riding it and what I think about the bike. But you know, people do. We put great trust in some YouTubers, and more person, because that's where we're heading. I'm not complaining about this at all, but it's just where we're heading now. Is that we see the review online, and we think, that's the bike, that's the one I might, what that person's saying to me is exactly what I want to hear. And what we then do, then we go and look online and try and find the bike. And what's interesting with motorbike manufacturers is that, have you ever noticed that you never see adverts for motorbikes on TV? You see loads of adverts for cars, you know, you're every other advert is for a car, and it blooming electric cars. And that's another whole world of pain, isn't it, really? But motorbikes, if you wanted to see a review of a motorbike, you know, you couldn't go and watch Top Gear or anything like that. You had to go and buy MCN, Motorcycle News, or magazines. But now we've got this thing ready on the end of our, you know, fingers, where we can watch reviews online. And, you know, it doesn't matter what bike it is. You know, one of these, whatever. You know, every bike has got a review online. You know, the quality of those reviews can be quite variable. We have situations where, you know, your favourite reviewer or your favourite YouTuber, vlogger, you know, has a couple of hours on a bike and extols its virtues as the greatest thing ever. And that's fine. We've got used to that. But the problem with that is that on the strength of that, we're quite often ordering bikes, you know, pre-ordering bikes, and we've never ridden it, because your interpretation of what that bike is works out as a good bike is totally different to somebody else's. And you know, I worry sometimes. The motorbike manufacturers and distributors and importers and wholesalers are relying now on YouTube to sell their bikes, and you know, that really is the case, isn't it? I remember watching a YouTuber who hadn't received a bike from a supplier to review and ride, and complained bitterly that if they had brought this bike out, I could have sold 10, 12, 15, 20 of those bikes for that supplier if they'd sent me that bike to review. And that's quite interesting. You think, well, hang on a minute. But he's probably right. He's probably totally right. When I remember seeing that video, it's quite some time ago, and I thought, God, that's very arrogant, isn't it? That's a very arrogant thing to say. But is it really? You know, we trust these YouTubers, and I'm not saying they're doing bad reviews by any stretch, but we do put a lot of faith in those, don't we? But that is the way we're buying motorbikes now. We are watching them online, and you know, YouTubers getting sent these bikes and just products, whatever it is, and they look at it, can you really trust that review? I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong and they're doing bad reviews, but it becomes a very objective view on that bike, isn't it? Rather than a fact-based thing. We're not taking surveys of 100 different people, shapes and sizes and riding abilities and saying, well, actually, if you're a very novice rider, I wouldn't ride this bike. If you're a very experienced rider, it's not going to be enough for you. This is where I think we're now getting into sort of odd territory now, and it's that thing of, this way of doing things has moved very, very fast. Because pre-COVID, and I bring COVID, you might hear a few clank and bang because they're putting up a big tent over there. I thought I'd be really on my own today. But pre-COVID, we had this situation where, how do we have meetings? How do we, catch up with people at work and all the rest of it? And things like Zoom meetings was very in its infancy there, not used a lot. Not in my experience, and in the work that I do. And all of a sudden, the software manufacturers and the people, designing all these products for computers for meetings, bang, that was quick, and now we're all doing Zoom, we're all doing Teams and whatever else it is, I must admit, I'm one of the few people who actually puts my camera on. I don't know why I bother, because nobody else does. But that's a weird thing. So, and this is the same with this. The market had to change very, very quickly. And now you see this raft of car suppliers who will give you a price for your old car, sell you a new one. They'll pick up the old one and give you the new one. You don't even test drive it. You just pick it up on faith that it's going to be okay. There's probably a cooling off period, isn't there? So those cars are a pile of junk. But are we going to get to that way with motorbikes? Are we going to, pre-ordering bikes seems to be the way of things, isn't it? If you look at, and again, this is not getting at Chinese motorbikes, CF Moto. Now those, I think there's something like, if I'm getting the information correct, there's about 100 bikes coming in February, I think it is, New Year, February, something like that. They're all pre-orders. CF Moto won't deliver anything that isn't pre-ordered, which means that, you pay your deposit, the bike turns up, you've got it. And, I don't think anybody could force you to take that bike. But dealers are going to want some reasonable guarantee, that you are going to take that bike. They've got to lay out the money. And I should think the margins are pretty small on those bikes. So, this really is sort of stack it high, sell it cheap a little bit, isn't it? Is that going to cause us problems in the future? I think it is the future. I think that's where we are. I think it's going to be, new motorbikes are going to be sold in that way. Probably in the next 5 years, that's the only way you'll probably get a new bike. You won't have a showroom. You may go to a motorbike show and see the bike there. You'll get to sit on it, and then you'll see the reviews online, and then you'll pre-order it and you'll go and get it. So, because people don't want shop fronts, why do that when you can see somebody else riding the bike? It's like having a continual Top Gear episode, isn't it? And there's so many reviews out there. So, is this a bad thing or is it a good thing? I don't think it's neither. I think it's the way of things. I think that's the way we're going. You go into any high street and you look at the amount of empty shops now, which is tragic for some of these lovely towns. Some of the more urban areas, they're already struggling. People can't afford the rates, the rents, the crazy price, costs that councils put on these shop fronts because they're trying to get some money in for the councils' heads. So it's evolution, isn't it? Whether we like it or not, it's evolution. So where does that leave, the regular guy and gal on the street for buying their bike? I think there will always be a market for good second-hand motorbikes. I think the market for those motorbikes will go down the route of bikes which will be easily serviceable. Hey, on the CB500X. where you can get the bits and pieces. I think that's going to be quite important to be able to maintain your own bike. I think there will be businesses which will be solely for repair and service. I think that some of these big players like Enfield and people like that will have to at some point allow small service centres to spring up. I don't see that I don't know how you can't do that. If you can't service the Enfield you just bought, within 100 miles, you're going to dump your bike back on the market, and that brings us to another point in a minute. But I think there's got to be some of these small service centres. If someone's got enough nous and financial backing, you'd think you'd have a big warehouse where you could service and maintain and do warranty work on all the major manufacturers. I did think you could almost have it like hairdressers. They rent a chair. You'd be able to rent a bench, and that engineer for Ducati will rent that and bring people down to that site to do warranty work on their Ducatis. You'll be licensed by those manufacturers to do that, and maybe that's an option. But this is the way of it now, everybody. I don't think the market will recover, because I don't think the market's failing. I think it's changing. I think that's the way of it. And we're just going to have to accept it, I suppose. We'll continue to find bikes to buy, bikes that are difficult to service and repair will fall by the wayside. They will lose their value. And as with all things, when the attrition rate is very high and there's only half a dozen of them bikes left, they'll be worth a lot of money because people think, well, it's a really collectible bike because I can still get it. So, yeah, we are losing that. In general, you look in the car trade, we're losing good mechanics. All we tend to have in garages now are fitters. It's plug in, plug out. We don't have lots of good mechanics. Back in the day, everybody had a tame mechanic, didn't they? Someone really good, or they knew like a tame electrician and plumber. They're disappearing. You just don't see them anymore. And the ones that are left are so overworked or getting old that they just can't do it anymore. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. The other thing which is I've noticed very much is a lot of people complaining about the values of their bikes collapsing. In particular, BSA. There was one YouTube video I watched the other day of bestowing the issue around the value of his bike, and it was only worth a couple of £1,000, or dealers won't take them, and all the rest of it. I think there's several issues going on there. It's not necessarily that the dealer doesn't want the bike because the bike's no good. I think we're coming autumn, winter, and people don't want to buy bikes anyway. Why does the dealer want to buy a bike? It's a quiet period. We're now going into that sort of hibernation period, where riders of my age group are putting their bikes away. They're going away for the winter. I won't be. I'll be riding all through the winter. But they're putting their bikes away. They're not buying bikes, and a dealer's not going to want to buy that bike and install it. Have to lay out some money for it, and then not get a chance to sell it again until maybe April next year. The bike's got to be stored. Every day you hold on to that piece of kit, it's losing money because you're storing it. And I think that's something people should be aware of. I was in business for 20 years, and I was very lucky being in the training industry that my overheads were very small. It was just me. I didn't need a shop front or anything. But people that have to hold on to stock, every day you have that piece of stock, it's losing money. So you either have to start selling stuff at trade price to just try and get rid of it, get some cash flow going, or you have to diversify. And I think this brings me back into this point of some of these larger retailers where they're quite stuck. They're the wholesalers that are selling them bikes. They're being told, well, if you want to retail our bikes, you need to buy 20 of those. You need one of each style, colour, and all the rest of it. And people can't do that. People can't do that. It's very similar into the clothing industry. I know a friend of mine sells barber clothing, and he has to buy the winter collection, the autumn collection, the summer collection, all the rest of it, whether you sell it or not. And although there's a huge markup in clothing, he had to buy a warehouse just to store the stuff that he couldn't shift, and they won't allow you to sell it knock down prices, which you could easily. So, you know, and that's the thing. These motorbike dealers, they can't suddenly have like a fire sale and get rid of all their stuff. They're more likely to have a fire, aren't they, and get the insurance. So, very, very difficult for retailers. Although I do always wonder, you know, the ones that I go to that seem to be holding their own and doing okay, they can be a little bit more nimble. They can be more able to adjust quickly to the market. I think that's not working. Get rid of that. You know, sell it for trade, sell it what we bought it for, and move on. And sometimes that's what you need to do when you're a small retailer. But there's also I've spoken to other dealers over the years, and that are in a really lovely location, and I've said to them, you know, coming from a business background, you're running a business for many years. I said, well, why don't you have a coffee stop here? You know, get yourself a coffee machine and start selling coffee, and, you know, Twix and a coffee, I'll be there. You know, I'm a Twix freak. And they're not interested. Oh, no, don't know. And you will find some of these little dealers will be making more money from coffee sales than they are from the bikes. And that's just a fact, absolute fact. They are making more money selling coffee than they are doing bikes. Nothing wrong with that. That's just diversifying your business, and just, you know, yes, you are subsidising your business, but if the thing you love doing is motorbikes and selling motorbikes and repairing them, then the coffee side of it just assists that. There's nothing wrong with that. And we love that, don't we? So many of us riders, you know, once I finish here, I'm going to get a coffee. I've got to go and see the man about my gold wheels, but I'm going to grab a coffee because I like going on my bike and pulling up and getting out and having a coffee. And that's it. And I think there's a lot of stuff you can diversify just to make a little bit of money there, a little bit of money here. It's just having the wherewithal to do it, and just not just sitting back and thinking, oh, I can't do that, I need to sell bikes. Yeah, but sometimes you've got to attract people into your business, haven't you? The amount of older dealers that don't have an internet presence. You can't work without an internet presence, or you can't expand your business without an internet presence. It just doesn't work, does it? So, yeah. The only thing I can say about people that are looking at their motorbikes that they bought and saying, well, I paid 6,000 for this bike, it's now only worth 2,000. Well, it's not. It's only worth 2,000 if you sell it, and then you've got £2,000 in hand. Buy it, use it for what you bought it for originally, enjoy it, run it. Don't think that because it's not worth so much now, or it's not so valuable in the market, that the bike isn't any good. It's still what you bought in the first place. Just use it and enjoy it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the value in it. Just get off and ride it and enjoy it. I know it's fair to say that, you know, some BSA and people like that, you know, they dropped the prices of their bikes and it affected the second-hand value of your bike. Well, yes, it did, didn't it, really? But at equal time, you know, we have a government that seems to, you know, put more restrictions on bikes and cars and all the rest of it, and, you know, it's like banning diesel cars and all the rest of it, or whatever it is going to happen, you know, destroys the value of your diesel car. So, you know, we could blame everybody, can't we? But if you bought that bike and to enjoy it and ride it, then do that. Don't worry about what it's worth now. You bought it probably at a sensible price. You know, the bikes were priced pretty well. You bought it, ride it. If you bought it to think you were going to ride it for a year and then sell it, you know, for tuppence less than you pay for it, you're on a hiding to nothing. You really are. I think we're very good in this country at talking ourselves into a crisis, aren't we? What was the we had the, you know, it's like the toilet roll situation, isn't it? You know, someone screams we're running out of toilet roll, and the shelves get emptied, isn't it? You know, someone screams, oh, my BSA bike's only worth half that it was, and we all sell our BSAs, and everybody else comes in the same situation. Well, you will do. because no one's going to buy them, no one's going to give you any money for it, because you're making the product worthless. So, you know, hang on to it. It's the same with the stock market, isn't it? People always say to you when there's a bit of a crash, hold on, don't panic, you know. But we do, don't we? We panic like mad, and we think we've got to get out of this. You know, I've got to get out of this as much as possible. If you think about it, if BSA went down the pan tomorrow, would the price of those bikes collapse, or would it stabilise? Because people think, oh, I always wanted one of them BSAs, and you know, the value of the bikes, I think, would actually creep back up, because I think, well, there'd be only so many in the market. Now, I'm not saying the BSA are going down a pound. I think they're bringing out a new bike, actually. So it'd be very interesting to see what BSA do. But yeah, enjoy your bike. Enjoy it. Don't panic. You know, let the market settle. Let it see where it ends up. And if you can afford to hold on, you might do so. Because remember, it's only worth that £2,000 if you sell it. Otherwise it's worth exactly the same what you paid for it when you bought it. So enjoy it. I think I've probably chewed your ears off enough now, haven't I? So yeah, it's yeah. I don't think the motorcycle industry is in crisis. I think it's just changing. It's changing now. And the pace of that change has been faster than anybody really wanted, and we're just going to have to live with that. We can't do anything about that. If I could put my finger on one thing that started all of these trains of problems, I could probably sum it up by that. It was this, wasn't it? The mobile phone. The mobile phone changed the whole way the world works, and you know. You've got the whole world at your fingertips and all this information. So, you know, if you could bin your phones, if everybody switched the mobile phone system off, would life be better or would life be worse? I don't know. I think maybe it'd be better. Right, take care, everybody. I'm going to go and have a coffee in the age-old fashion of men of my age with motorbikes. And I'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.